Did you hear what Jesus said? Jesus didn't just point to salt and light. Jesus said that you are salt and light. You are the transformative elements of life. You are the ones that can make all the difference in someone's need, in someone's darkness. Why? By extending a hand, bringing a casserole, maybe by putting an arm around somebody and saying, "How's the recovery going? I'm with you in this darkness." It can make a big difference, a big difference. What's interesting to me is that Jesus doesn't say that you need the big events of life. Salt and light are very simple elements, you see. They're very basic to life. And when you are in darkness or you need a little seasoning, it doesn't take much. Do you understand that we can be that for others? Do you? Do you know what your word of kindness, that generous extension, can mean to someone? Sprinkle a little salt around. Show a little light in the darkness and things begin to change. Jesus didn't say that we needed to have great things to make big differences. He just said, do what you can do. And you want to know the great thing about this? We can all do the little things. And yet those things can make the difference that's needed. You don't believe me? Let me tell you a story. I came into the office on Monday. Christy and I, Sam and Wanda, were sort of getting ready for the week, figuring out what we had to do. And Wanda said, "Well, Judy Day's here." And I said, "She is." I said, "Hi, Judy." She said, "Hi." Wanda said, "Jim, it's Judy's birthday." So I went over to her and I said, "Judy, it's your birthday. Happy birthday to you. I'm pleased for you." And she said, "Thank you very much." And she said, I said, "What are you doing for your birthday?" He says, "Oh, not too much." She said, "I'm going out to lunch with a friend." I said, "Well, that's good." I said, "What else are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I just thought I'd come to church and see what I could do." You know what she was doing? She was washing coffee pots. I thought about that all week, Judy. You see, this is how it works. If Judy doesn't wash the coffee pots, you don't drink coffee. And if you don't drink coffee, your experience out in the narthex is not as welcoming. And if it's not as welcoming for you, you don't have the opportunity to be light and seasoning and build a strong, close-knit community that we have. Yep. That's what washing coffee pots does. It changes the world. I've been thinking about that all week long, Judy, and thinking that is a spiritual gift, washing coffee pots. It's something that allows us to fulfill what Jesus called us to do, which was to be salt and light in the world. We can all do that, you know. There's all kinds of things we can do for one another, and in doing that, we change things. But the thing is, we have to choose to do it. We can't just float through life. We have to intentionally decide, I'm going to go over to the church and I'm going to wash coffee pots. I'll tell you one last story. I feel so bad I had to have you wait so long up there, Alicia. And such a lovely reading this morning, too. Please forgive me. In the late 1800s, there was a French scientist. Let's see how good my French is this morning. His name was Jean-Henri Fabre. And Fabre was a scientist who studied things like insects and spiders and caterpillars. In fact, he was really fascinated by these little caterpillars called pine processionary caterpillars. You see, what they did is they would work their way through the forest, eating pine needles that had dropped from the trees. That was their food source. But the thing is, they would always travel in one line. There'd be someone leading the way. The next caterpillar had its head up against the rear of the first one, and then one behind that one had its rear up against the one that was in front of him or her. And this is what they would do. They would wind through the pine forest, all following one after another. They never were separated. So Fabre decided to try something. He got himself a clay pot, a flower pot, right? And he coaxed one little caterpillar up onto the rim of it. And then he got the next one to follow with its head butted up against the rear of the first one. And then another one. And before you know it, he had caterpillars all around the rim of the flower pot. And sure enough, they followed. Round and round and round they went. Just like Joshua and the story of Jericho. 7 days and 7 nights they went around the flower pot. Not one of them stopping. Not stopping to eat. Not stopping for church. Not stopping for anything. Until they began to die. And they fell off, exhausted and hungry, even though their food source was right nearby. Right? The pine needles were all around, but they would have had to choose to get off. You see, what they did is they made the same mistake that you and I make oftentimes, thinking that activity is the same thing as direction. They thought that their purpose was just to go round and round and round and keep going round and round and round. They didn't realize that they had a greater purpose for which they were created. You know the watch you have on your arm there? It was created to tell time. That airplane Tim and Nancy flew down on, it was built to fly. And the car you came over to church this morning in, it was made to drive. My shoe, made to be worn. And you? And you? You? Yeah. You too, Keem. You all were created for a purpose too, just like me. And you know what that purpose is? To love God and to love one another. And you do that by being intentional, by not making the mistake that activity is the same thing as direction. You get up and you wash coffee pots. Or you go to the bargain basket. How many of you work over at the bargain basket? That's what I thought. How many of you work over at the food pantry? Just a couple. You have purpose to your lives. That's why you were born. That's why you were created. And that's how it's best to live. As salt, a little bit of salt, a little bit of light, and you can change the world. Sure beats being a fuzzy little caterpillar going round and around in circles, butted up against somebody else's rear. That's all I got for you. May God bless you, and may God bless United Church of Marco Island.